Oh, Dr. White, thank you for taking my calls yesterday. I meant to text you and say thank you for taking calls on the weekend and taking care of that. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Thank
That's
you.
what we do.
Thank you for that. Dr. White, I would have thought you would have wore something for the national. Knicks have won the championship. You know,
Definitely on
it's
Thursday.
all week. It's gonna be all week. You're gonna see.
Yes.
You'll see the colors all week long.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. White,
Yes.
just as a heads up, because at least one committee member needs to leave earlier today than the meeting is likely to go, there's a strong chance we're going to move up the landscaping agreements towards the beginning of the meeting to give time for that discussion.
No problem.
All right. Thank you, sir. So, hello, everyone. We're just going to wait another minute or two so we can make sure we have committee members present. I've heard from both that they will be here, so. All right, well, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to Finance and Operations Committee for June 15th. We will go ahead and get started. Happy to be here to celebrate my wedding anniversary with you all. So,
Congratulations.
Happy
yeah,
anniversary.
yeah,
Happy anniversary.
35 years actually. So,
Wonderful.
um, my wife Joanne was not a child bride. She just looks like she was. But
Lovely.
anyways, um, so we'll go ahead and get started. One thing we're going to do is we will be moving the items 7.01, 2, and 3 up towards the beginning of the meeting. We'll just throw it in right after the information only items, just to make sure we have time for the discussion. And I know at least one committee member is going to need to leave a little early, so we want to make sure that they have chance to ask questions and hear the discussion. So we'll go ahead and get started. And are there any comments or questions related to these 14 information only items? Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, thank you. I did have one question. Just trying to pull up the agenda. Um, I think it was related to the STEM programs. And my question was, does it end up being does it end up being that we just pay per student? Because I think one of them, it might have been for 60 students, and then there was a cost per student. Do we pay just for when the students participate up to the amount, or is it the case that we pay this flat amount, and then if it's under enrolled, we're still paying for seats that are not necessarily filled?
So
I thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. I just wanted to make sure I understand fully the question. So you're responding to the WEX grant program where it is $333 per student for 60
Yeah.
students, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
So yes. So we enroll the students in the program, and that is the expected cost. Now, we don't have students who we sometimes have students who don't show up 100% of the time, but we contract with the contractors based on the enrollment. We have had strong enrollment, so we feel pretty confident that we will have students who will probably and likely be absent a day or two, but the contractor is expected to be there and carry out the full program based on the enrollment. This was a very popular program as we sent out the applications pending board approval, and we have seats for about 90 students overall. However, we have about 170 students signed up, so there is a waiting list so far. So we feel pretty confident in terms of the participation.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
thank you. Hearing nothing else on the information only items, we will drop down to item 7, which is landscaping related. 701 is for this current fiscal year, and 702 and 703 is for next fiscal year. So, Dr. White, would you please start with 7.01?
Yes. So 7.01 is for, make sure I'm reading the correct one. This is for the additional zones that were added after the previous vendor had stepped out of doing the work. So we had originally awarded 22 zones, then added 2 zones when one contractor had came out and didn't respond when the city was going through the process to complete the contracting with them. And then following that, we then had another contractor who was awarded 22 zones by the board. It was approved and then withdrew from the process. And so with what was left, we only had one vendor to give the rest of the zones to. So currently, Cheapskates is doing all of the zones, and the increase is because we've gone from they had 2 zones to now having 24, and that's the nature of this particular memo and the cost for them to do the work on all of our schools.
All right, thank you, Dr. White. Comments or questions for 7.01? Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, Dr. White, I think this might be mentioned in your memo. So essentially, there are other vendors who were awarded zones and they didn't do the work or didn't do all of the work. So we're not necessarily double paying, but it's that
No, we added
the
work.
budget we had there. Okay, so it's mostly within the scope of budget that we set aside for landscaping for this
Yes,
current
it
year.
is. Yes, it is within the budget that we laid out for this work to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Please, Ms. Downer.
Yes, is Cheapskate the only vendor that's doing it now?
For the moment, yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess I could ask my other questions. I can wait till 7.3. So I'll just ask them all together. And for the ones that because you just answered my question, one of my questions. So for the ones that we have here, I'll just wait, or I can just send the email. But I'll ask a few after 7.3.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So I had a question or clarification or two. So for 7.01, if I understand it correctly from reading the memo, that we'd already approved several weeks or a few weeks ago 2 vendors to do this work, 2 zones for Cheapskates, 22 zones for another vendor. That vendor dropped out.
Correct.
And declined to continue to work with the district for whatever reason, finish the contracting. And then after conversation with purchasing, there was not enough time to reopen to do another round of bidding for that zone due to the nature that this is for spring now. And so purchasing says this was the way to go. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this was the way to go so that we can have the cleanups done and be ready for, particularly with graduations, end of year activities, and finish up the work. Yes.
Okay. And so while, this is a large amount, 1,115%, that's the nature of Cheapskates had only 2 zones from this contract or from this bid
Right.
process.
So
And
adding
so
to 22.
transferring those over. So just a clarification, this is not, is this increasing the landscaping budget for the spring, or is this just transferring the work from a vendor who declined to do it to the only other vendor we're allowed to give it to?
It's a transfer of the work. So it's not increasing the budget. This was the transfer of the work.
Okay. Thank you. That answered my question. Thank you for the memo. It was quite detailed, so I appreciate that. Ms. Downer?
Okay.
I do have a question. What were the reasons for that withdrawal? Did they ever give you one? And do we have any safeguards in place to prevent these similar disruptions?
I did not get a clearance. I can check in with purchasing because it's when it was moving through the steps. Also received the email that they were not going to fulfill, I can follow up to see what the answer was and report that back if there was a specific reason. Because we've done work with them before and they've worked with us.
It's 73.
And moving on, then O2 and O3, 7.02 and O3, these are for landscaping service for the upcoming year. And again, some vendors did not complete the bidding process. And so we were left to work with cheapskates to do the work this year. And that's what these two, essentially do all of the zones for the upcoming year.
All right, thank you. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. I guess my only question right now, my first question right now is about vendor capacity. I know we've spoken about that for other contracts where we try to see, does a vendor have capacity for the work? And it sounds like with the current proposal that we would be doubling the capacity. We'll be doubling the work, the number of zones. I guess
Yes.
essentially maybe all the zones. Is that the case? And do you think
Yes.
the vendor has capacity for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, and unlike snow removal, with a working schedule, they would have the capacity. It's not the same as we need to have it done necessarily in the next 12 hours so we could open school. So there's a lot more flexibility, including them working on weekends and off hours and different times.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Danner?
So that was the capacity is a real issue here, and sometimes you can get over concentration. So because all these three items are awarded to the same vendor, what steps were taken to ensure competitive pricing and avoid over reliance on the single vendor for all district landscaping?
The bid, we followed the bidding process, put it out for vendors to apply for it. It goes out through the OpenGov system. So any vendor who's been registered with the city or interested in doing any sort of work, it goes out. They receive notification, and then it's up to the vendors to choose to respond to the bid.
So do we have any way we can compare comparisons, like to ensure that the pricing that we're getting from this vendor is reasonable for these sites?
Without the
site analysis, like do we have any other vendors that we can bump this vendor up against?
Well, we would need them to respond. We would need other vendors to respond to the pricing, to respond with a request so that we would know what they would charge for it.
So I got another question. Why wasn't our current Park and Rec department not included in any kind of planning or oversight? Like, why aren't we looking at them to contract with them? And given that a lot of these sites overlap with athletic fields, our playgrounds, and we do shared municipal spaces. When I say shared, Bowen Field is shared, so I'm just trying to figure out what are we doing to mitigate and bring this stuff in-house. And that also, sorry, Dr. White, but it includes also the neighboring towns. Like, are we looking at shared neighboring towns when some of these towns actually, especially in New Haven County, some of these towns actually do have landscaping where they do have spare time to come over and help us. Cost sharing agreements. So that's, can you just, let's talk about that, the intermunicipal agreements.
Right. We haven't been at the point of capacity to work on that as we complete our transition into having staffing our own facilities department. These are things that we could work on for what would be fiscal year 28. But at the moment, at the work that we're trying to do to have things done in the time we have, we were working on this. Parks Department were able to help us through an overtime capacity to do some of our schools when a previous vendor had backed out the last year, so that we were able to get our schools open on. But this is work that, again, with a fully staffed department, we can work on what could be done in the future. One of the goals for the upcoming year is to look at all of these different services and really price out where there's capacity and ability that things can come inside. So those will be things that will be reported out as we go into the next fiscal year.
Okay, so this, thank you for that. How does the combined total of these three contracts, all three of them, 7-1-2-3, impact the 2025-2027 operating budgets? And were these increases anticipated?
This was so starting with the first one, that was no impact because that was the money that was allotted for the work for this year. And each year as we do the budgeting, we do figure out how much is it going to be. And so we do keep up with that. And this is within the budgeting parameters for the upcoming year.
Okay, thank you. What is the contingency plan if this vendor is unable to service all 46 sites across the contracts?
Well, that'll be working with them to make sure that, and if we had to do some of that work again, it would be working with Parks Department in a overtime capacity, and obviously then clawing back, not paying for work not done. There wouldn't be a clawback situation. It would be payment. It'd only be payment for services rendered.
Okay, and that's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Downer. I have one or two quick ones here. And that is if we determine, if I remember correctly, last fall, when we had discussions about the landscaping contracts, your department had instituted quality control measures, monitoring to make sure that the work was being done satisfactorily. And if it wasn't, then it was going to be addressed with the vendors. And is that work going to continue moving forward?
Yes, it will.
So is that kind of just built into things now, or is it?
Yes, we are, when work is done, people go out and look at what's been done so that, again, we know that things are done to the satisfaction and that we are getting what we're paying for.
Okay. And if they were not performing satisfactorily, then there's language in the contract for having them address that or for taking the work away from them, putting it back out to bid. A natural time period would be after the fall when landscaping needs diminish greatly in, December and January. So it could go back out. And so it could be like those contracts could be canceled and then put back out through the bid process for folks to do the spring landscaping. So that
if that were necessary.
If that was necessary, that could happen. Okay. Thank you. Those were my questions. And just as a comment that in addition to some of the good ideas we've been hearing, is also collectively, this increases the amount that requires, if these were one contract, this would be past the amount that requires the small contractor development program that the city has. So as you all are doing your analysis on this, that's one thing. In addition to, this is for 2 zones, and for snow, we have 5 zones. And I understand that part of the need for that is as you were mentioning earlier, the snow work has to happen like now, so schools can open in the morning kind of thing. So it's like the work has to be done, and it has to be done all at once across many sites. But it also could be that maybe these 2 zones are a little bit large for some of the, if we're really truly wanting to have small contractors do this work, then it might be that looking at these in terms of multiple zones beyond these 2, that might encourage somebody who, could handle 10 schools, but couldn't handle, 22 with their current workforce and equipment. So I just would suggest, in addition to some of the other ideas that taking a look, are these the right zones for this at this time? Which also might help increase competition, and also how we can increase the number of people that bid on these types of jobs. There's definitely a knowledge gap between people that know how to manage the system and go through the application process, have the proper insurance. And so if we are going to be using the small contractor development program, which I think is great, we just need to make sure that they're developing the small contractors to the point of being able to bid on the work. So that's just editorial, I guess, on my part. But anything else related to item 7, 1, 2, or 3? All right, hearing nothing, we'll drop back to where are we at here? Item 3.01, abstract with post-secondary readiness. Ms. Bonanno?
Yeah, so this is a $20,600 grant that is basically a pass-through from the state of Connecticut. This is for the state to cover the fees associated with 11th grade PSAT testing. New Haven Public Schools is also responsible for passing the money off to the 3 charter schools, Achievement First, Common Ground, and Highville, for their scores. So the state used to pay this directly, and now they have set this up in grant form and pass-through form. So we expect that this will happen again next year in this way. So our entire 11th grade cost for PSAT testing is covered, and then a small portion of the biliteracy, seal of biliteracy fees have been covered through this funding.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, hearing none. 3.02, school-based health center grant. Ms. Peters?
Yes, good afternoon. This is the year 5 grant for school-based health centers from the Department of Public Health for our school-based health center sites. They provide funding to support 11 school-based health centers, and those are operated by what we'll describe a little bit later today as under agreements with Cornell Scott Hill Health Center, Fairhaven, and Yale New Haven Hospital. Clifford Beard used to be one of our partners for many, many years, and they have actually bowed out this year for financial reasons. So it's those 3 partners that are going to be operating these school-based health centers that are funded under this grant. It's for $1,375,737. There was some COLA amendments that were added to this amount, so it's a little higher than it was last year. So it will cover those 11, and our partners that I'll talk about later, they operate many other sites, but this grant actually is funding just for those 11 sites.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peters. I read that this is year 5 of a 5-year contract. Has there been any indication from the Connecticut Department of Health on whether they intend to continue providing grants for in this nature?
That's a good question. I'm like 99.9% certain they will, because they do these 5-year block grants for districts like ours, and they've been funding us since like 1995. So we're very hopeful. They've always been the sole source of our funding for school-based health centers, and they're very committed to school-based health. So I don't expect, I've been in touch, with possible cuts early on in the year or last year when there was talk about federal funding being reduced for different health things, but that hasn't come down. From what I understand, it should be at least what we're getting now for the next 5 years.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to purchase orders 4.01 with Frontline Technologies. Ms. Flegler, or is there someone else that can?
I'll be speaking for that
Okay.
purchase order. So we're asking that we get approval to continue our partnership with Frontline Education Services, as that is a platform that we use for our hiring and recruiting, as well as absence management, and it houses all of our candidate information as we continue to kind of get away from the paper. So we want to keep that as our platform for our hiring and our recruiting and absence management.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either, so 4.02 purchase order with Severin Intermediate Holdings for Power School. Mr. Nguyen?
Yeah, so this is a purchase order for Power School. This is the second year of a 5-year contract, which brought us about $200,000 in savings. This system is a student information system that houses all our information for our students, and it helps our educators input their grades and information for all our students in order for them to do it. The subscriptions we have are for Perform, which is the teacher evaluation, all our registration and enrollment forms, our e-collect forms, the cloud, and overall the general student information. So with this second year altogether of the 5 year, it's a $200,000 savings.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. 4.03 purchase order with SHI International. Ms. Herrera or Mr. Connolly?
Yes, this is the contract for all of our Microsoft services for the coming year. This is all of the software that we use, the Microsoft Office package. This is our email system, the ability to run Windows on computers, the ability to run Windows on servers. Basically, if it comes from Microsoft, it's included in this package. And I want to point out, this is approximately a $20,000 decrease from last year with no cut in services.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Connolly, for presenting this. The decrease, what does that due to?
That is due to getting a better count of the number of employees that we have active within the systems. And some of it, or a lot of it actually, has come through shifting services. So we were able to shut down servers that use an SQL database. And by doing that, we were able to see a significant savings.
Great. Thank you for your work and the team's work on this.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, we'll move into agreements, the first two of which are 5.01 with Cornell Scott and 5.02 with Fairhaven Community Health Center. Ms. Peters, would you
Yes,
talk about those?
these are our two health partners that we've worked with for over 30 years, and they are the ones that are funded under that DPH grant abstract that I just presented. So one is with Cornell Scott. They actually operate the largest number of our school-based health centers. They operate 10, and their amount for this year is $410,000 for running that, and that basically covers mental health, and then office manager support. The agreement with Fairhaven, again, that's our second partner. They operate 8 of our school health centers, but they also offer dental to our students. So they have dental, mental health, medical, and office support in the amount of 280,843. Again, funded under that grant.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. Ms. Peters, what's the uh, utilization rate? Are these underutilized by our students or
Oh,
overutilized?
the school-based health centers in general?
Yes.
Oh, we actually track that, and we work really hard to increase enrollment. Our benchmarks are over, depending on the size of the school. Like Hill House has so many more kids than Wilbur Cross,
Yeah.
but for 500 or under, we like to have at least 70% enrollment. With that in mind, the utilization rate, they can't be seen without being enrolled. So it's very dependent on enrollment. So there's a real push, but the utilization rate is somewhere about 40% of those. And then again, that's for unduplicated users. So we have students that come down every day, and then you have others that might come once a year. So but they have been all of the ones that are funded, the Fairhaven and Cornell and even Yale, they have been around for a very long time. So there's unless they're a brand new school like Metro, it takes a while to get families on board and people to understand. So the ones like that, these 18 have been around for a long time, and they're very well utilized. I think they have strong support with families, and the principals and administration.
Okay, great. And is there capacity for increase in utilization?
Oh yeah. I mean, these sites have full-time staff there. Their only time, like Reggie Mayo, they even have full-time, at the K. I'm trying to think. There's used to be Riverside. That was we only had someone there like one a day. You couldn't justify keeping somebody there if nobody used the site, the clinic. And sadly, that one really ended up us losing. Nobody would take it on because any given day there wasn't the numbers for them to sustain or justify having providers there.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, and uh, it may not be connected to this, but in terms of I think medical forms or different forms from a provider that students and families may need to submit for the beginning of the school year, is that something that students and families can complete through these school-based clinics?
So are you referring to like the medical forms that are required to be given to the school nurse? Those, like if they have
Yes.
allergies, if they a last physical exam, those
Yes.
kinds of things, that is handled strictly by the health department, the school nurses. So if they gave them to, let's say there's an office manager there, the school nurse is not there or maybe not there every day, we certainly work with them and we have a folder. We would give those to the school nurse. But that's just the responsibility of the health department because they have to report to the state how many students are in compliance, with immunizations and physicals. If they need those, what we're doing this year and we did last year, the school-based health centers are opening 2 weeks before school starts so that in connection with the health department, we know that there's X number of kids that need to have these. We're open to any student who needs them those 2 weeks before. So we're working closely with the health department to get as many kids compliant before school starts because we know now that, they have to be compliant or they can't start.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Hearing nothing else on that, 5.03, agreement with ACES, Ms. Jackson.
Sorry about that. Can unmute. This is our agreement that we have. We utilize this is not just for the summer, but this is also for the entire year. We have specifically or primarily working with our autism specific programs. We have behavioral analysts and behavioral technicians that are supporting the program. So this is not only just for our program throughout the year, this is also for our programming over the summer.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I'm just looking at the funding sources. Is this a like reimbursement with the IDEA program, or an amount is just applied to that grant funding
It's
source?
just it's the amount that's applied to that grant.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Move on to 5.04, which is with All Point Home Care. Ms. Jackson.
Yep, I can talk about 5.04 and also 5.05. These are for individual nursing support. We have an increasing number of students who require individual nursing support. Even so much so that you'll see that we have students that we're even transporting, even on transportation. But again, as per their IEP, we are mandated to provide the services for them. So that is again, we have a couple of different nursing services that we have. So that's 5.04 and then also 5.05. And starting in for 5.05, starting in our extended school year summer program.
All right, any comments or questions on those two? I had none either. Thank you. 5.06, agreement with Decision Ed Group. Mr. Nguyen.
This is an agreement for our dashboard platform that shows the enrollment, behavior, and assessments. It allows the educators in our district to view all sorts of data in this platform from Decision Ed.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? I had none either. 5.07, agreement with Tiffany Beach. Ms. Jackson.
Yep, this is for one of many speech and language contracts that will be coming through. Again, this particular vendor starts with us over the our summer program and extends all the way out through the whole year to provide us with speech and language pathology services to help support our full-time speech and language pathologists that we have in the district. Again, national shortage area. I know I come every year talking about the speech and language services.
All right. Thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you. Is this contract amount for, so is this essentially for that one professional, or does this professional have other subcontractors or employees that
It's
come
for
to the
the
district?
Nope, it's for the one professional starting in our summer program in July, all the way up and through the remainder of the upcoming 26-27 school year.
Okay. And would you happen to know whether this contractor has other clients outside of NHPS?
I do not believe so because she spends a great amount of time here,
Okay.
but I'm not sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You're hearing nothing else on that. 5.08, a renewal option 1 of 1 with Service Management Group. Dr. White?
Yes, Service Management Group has been our part-time custodial service, and this is exercising option for year 2. A couple things to note. The previous contract was only for 9 months because we had some issues with the bidding the previous year that we had to do a brief extension with the prior company whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. And then so that contract ran through from October through June 30th. This would be a full year contract. And one of the subjects within the contract was that if there was any living wage or union agreement, wage increases, that would be reflected into our year 2. Hence, our the amount we are requesting is $6,157,263 as opposed to the 5,863,830. This is represented because there were increases that the unions for livable wage and agreements, which, as I said, in our contract, we do pay for.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, thank you. You actually answered the questions I had in your narrative, so thank you for that.
Dr. Yarber,
Oh, Dr. Yarbrough,
Just one question. On the last page under program type, it has theater. Is that how is that connected?
it's other. I'm not sure why theater is in there.
Okay, all right.
I will. I believe that was a copy and paste error. So
Okay, no, all right,
we
thank
will
you.
get that cleaned up.
No thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Heard nothing else on that. 5.09, agreement with ABM. Dr. White.
Yes. As part of the transition plan for custodial services that was presented, it was discussed that we would do a small extension contract with ABM while we staff up internally. And this is what this represents. This would be for July through September 30th, by which time we will have positions filled and able to fully bring our services in-house and make sure we have a smooth transition so that this is happening in September after school is open, after everything's in place, so that we are able to do everything we need to do in the transition back to in-house services.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? My only question is, so understanding that this requires hiring some positions and everything, this is the length of contract that you think is that this is all you need in order to successfully manage this transition?
Yes, positions have posted. So in the midst of the civil service process for the key positions and hiring the additional, and confident that these 3 months will cover it. And this maintains us within the projected savings of bringing the contract back in-house.
All right. I mean, savings to the district. Thank you.
Savings to the district, correct.
Okay. That was the question I had, so thank you for that. Hearing nothing else on that. Where are we at here? Lost my place. So 6.01 is an amendment to the agreement with the State of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. Ms. Derwin?
Good afternoon. This is an amendment to the existing state contract, and this impacts Lincoln Bassett School, East Rock, Hill Central, Nathan Hale, and Fame. This is an increase awarded based on slots and quality. Also includes Head Start on housing. So this is over a 2-year period, and 79,800 will be going to the early start classrooms, and the remainder will be going to the Head Start state classrooms, which is at Lincoln Bassett, and 15,000 of that is the Head Start on housing money that will be used to support families with housing insecurities.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? I had none either. Thank you very much. We've already dealt with the 3 items in section 7. So we'll move on to section 8, contracts. 8.01, renewal of award with Air Care Environmental Services. Mr. Young?
Oh, good evening. Air Care Environmental Services, they do our hood inspections in our cafeterias.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? We'll go to 8.02 with Precision Food Service. Mr. Young.
8.02 Precision Food Service. This is for our on-call refrigeration repair.
All right, comments or questions? 8.03 Precision Food Service.
8.03 is for on-call oven and steam repair.
All right, comments or questions? I had none either. 804 award with the Carbonella fresh produce. Mr. Young?
And Carbonello is our produce for the district.
Any other comments or questions? And then finally, 8.05 is also with Carbonella for fresh fruit.
So yes, this is for our fresh fruit and vegetable program with Carbonello for 5 selected sites throughout the school year.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right. Hearing none, thank you, sir. Moving to change orders. 901 change order with Imperial Dade. Dr. White.
Yes, this particular one is around making sure we have all the functioning equipment, such as the floor scrubbers, known as the T5s and the T7s, and any other equipment that the custodians use to clean the buildings. A lot of things have broken down, and we needed to do more of a repair so that everyone can do their work thoroughly, and especially as we move into the summer cleaning season, we want to make sure everyone has working equipment.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. 902 change order with Cone Incorporated.
Yes, we've had a lot of elevator issues over the year, and we've had to call out Kone frequently to repair these issues and get our elevators back up and working, both for ADA compliance as well as just making sure that they are working so that any staff or student who needs them are able to use them.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. We'll move on 903, which is with Anti-Simics.
Yes. We've been dealing with a variety of rodent activity as well as other, previously we had some bee and wasp infestations. And so working on all of these so that we maintain our schools, especially as we move into this time of year where some buildings will not be fully occupied.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, I had none either. That was the end of the standard action items. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. And I move that we send to the full board these 2 abstracts, 3 purchase orders, 9 agreements, 1 amendment, 3 landscaping items, 5 contracts, and 3 change orders as outlined on our agenda.
Second.
Been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Those items will move forward. Next on the agenda is an update on the MOU for the Corp Counsel position. Dr. Negron?
Trying to find the unmute button. We're still working. Attorney Barrera is going to be supporting to continue to work on the language for the MOU. We're not expecting any changes. So it's a matter of getting that drafted and bring it forward for approval.
All right, so perhaps at our next meeting or?
I know he has a long to-do list, but I got to bring it
Yep.
back to the top of his agenda.
Definitely by the next meeting. It's just updating names, and there's a couple of things I just probably need to talk to Dr. Negron and our new corp counsel as well. Just some references to labor and employment lawyer that I do not think exists, and that's pretty much the only issue. So I just need to figure out what to do with that statement in there. But I'll do that offline.
Well, one of the nice things about June this year is it is a lovely 5th Monday month. So you get an extra week for that kind of a double checking. And our next meeting is actually not going to be on Monday. The first Monday, we moved it to Tuesday, June, whatever it is. I mean, July 6th? No, 7th. So an extra day even. So, all right. Any other questions on that? All right. Hearing none. Item 1101. So as part of the looking over the information related to what we talked about previously, landscape item 701, it was noticed that we had the wrong amount listed on both our meeting material, our meeting item description for both the F&O meeting and for the full board meeting. The backup information was all correct. So if you click through and looked at the information related to cheapscapes, it did show properly that it was two zones for $5,200, but it was just listed in the description as 58,000, as if the zones were the same amount. So this is to correct that. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we amend our finance and operations minutes of April 6, 2026 to item 8.06 regarding cheapscapes to correct the funding amount listed on the agenda from 58,000 to 5,200 per the supporting documents. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? So just a comment that we'll also have a similar motion as part of the action items for the full board meeting. So just so you know, Dr. Yarborough, that's coming.
Thank you.
But Ms. DeMayo's gonna list that in there. So we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Motion carries. Moving into some reports. There are two. One's related to the May 26 financial report and then also our 27 budget update. So first, the May 26 financial report, please, Mr. Hernandez.
Perfect. You do see the, let me make it bigger. Okay, you do see the presentation, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is the financial report through May 31st, 2026. As always, the SOP, and we're definitely focusing always on operational efficiencies, and you hear a little bit more about that when we talk about the budget for next year. We've put a lot of effort and emphasis in this particular component of the strategic operating plan when we build the budget for next year. The financial report, the general fund through May 31st, 2026. We have here on column B $169 million of expenses that have already been recognized, in addition to $49 million of encumbrances. I will answer this question just in case it comes up in the future. If you compare month to month, you're going to see how sometimes the numbers fluctuate up and down. And it may bring up the question of, if hypothetically, if last month you already had $70 million worth of expenses, how come you only have $68 million this month? How do expenses go down as opposed to add up to the future? Well, that would be the case in a normal, revenue versus expenses budget accounting system. But the way that the city and the district does their accounting, we don't budget for revenue. So what we do is that we use revenue to offset expenses. So sometimes the expenses will show to be lower than previous months only because we use revenues to kind of reimburse back the city or reimburse back the district. And then those two expenses fluctuate up and down. And I learned that recently as I was looking at numbers and asking questions, and that's how the revenues offset expenses. But in this case, you'll see that it's $169 million with 49 of encumbrances, which will give us a total roughly of $219 million or so, which will be about $5-6 million over budget. And that's why on the available, you see a negative $5.7 million, which will be part of the deficit that we've been talking about for the last few months. And then next month we'll know for sure, the final outcome of what the deficit number will be. But this is in line with what we projected on our projection through that we provided in January, about 4 or 5 months ago. This is the detail level of those categories, and normally I just go through this fairly quick, and you have more time to look at this, and then come back with any questions. I don't think that there's anything here in particular that jumps out. We've always known that transportation, which is at the bottom of your screen, we've always known that that will be the area where you will see the biggest deficit based on how transportation was budgeted last year, which will change now moving forward as you see how transportation is budgeted for the future year, for next year. We made some changes to avoid something like this to happen, at least not to that level. And then this is the final two categories of the financials. Here you have the data points that I try to show every month. Last month I didn't show this on time for the presentation. I did add it to the presentation to be posted, but I didn't get a chance to show it during our meeting. So this time I want to make sure that I did show it. And this shows basically the year-to-date plus encumbrances. That's $290 million through May, and the available balance at a negative of $5.7 million. So this is a good visual just so we can see the trends, and it helps me for the future to kind of find out what the trends are based on a seasonal expenses. Oftentimes organizations have more expenses in one month versus the other based on activities that happen, and this helps me understand how we can manage our projections better in the future as I study and gather this data over the last 2-3 years. It helps understand how we can do a better job at projecting for the future. And then now I'll just open it up for questions regarding any of this information before we move on to the budget for next year.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? Well, I think you covered mine as well. So let's go on to the next item then.
All right. So you do see the screen as well?
I see it says questions from the
No.
last
So, okay.
presentation.
So let me stop sharing and let me reshare. Oftentimes that happens. Let me now share this one here. Okay. Now you see superintendent's proposed operating.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oops. All right. So again, starting with the path to excellence, the SOP, where this is a draft of the presentation that we're going to present next Monday to the entire board. Perhaps there may be a few more slides that we may add for Monday. As I receive some feedback from you today, we may be able to tweak it a little bit and add or subtract any information. So please, as I go through this slideshow, if I'll be more than happy to receive any feedback or regarding what you would like to see when we present this to the entire board on Monday. Let me move this screen out of the way. My apologies. I'm trying to be able to read this. Okay, there you go. Again, this was created with the transparency and equity in mind. These are the fiscal priorities as we discussed back when I showed you the draft of the budget. We touch base on every single one of these, the FT levels. That's extremely important. And to that point, I will make a notation when I speak to regarding the $6 million funding that was assigned to the fund balance. I will speak a little bit about the current FTE levels, college and career pathways, special education and ML students, arts, athletics, social emotional support, school attendance, support for families. These are all the fiscal priorities that we wanted to protect. So when we requested a budget of $232 million after we had already included $20.5 million worth of special funds, it was with the intentions of preserving and protecting these particular areas. The budget key drivers, they have not changed. Even now through the end of the year, they have sustained. They have been the same that we've been speaking about since the beginning of this budget development process, which is the personnel cost, the student needs as part of special education, mental health support, intervention staff, multilingual support, transportation, and facility maintenance. Those are the budget key drivers. And they oftentimes you could project and predict some of these expenses, But like in the case of special education and transportation, it becomes a little bit more difficult as the needs of the students get a little bit more complex, and the structure of the transportation system gets a little bit more complex with the needs of the students. We did started a little bit of a pilot program as far as the base allocation model to start creating a little bit more equity resource allocation to ensure that we strategically position, ourselves and maximize impact on outcomes, targeted support for closing gaps, allocating, additional funding for schools based on the two cohorts, the multi-language learners and the special education students. And then that way we can just kind of bridge that gap that oftentimes exists between cohorts of students and or schools and or geographical areas. And then here is the the budget that we've been waiting for a while since we started presenting the draft budget back in January and February. It has now developed into what you see in front of you. So I will take you through these columns because this is like a very extended version of the budget. And I only did this for these purposes only so we could tell the story. Otherwise, as we move forward into July and August, this will be condensed into less columns, but only for purposes of knowing where these numbers came from and the impact that it has. I wanted to create this version that's a little bit more extended than the normal budget summary that you are accustomed to see. So you have the approved budget on the first column here that has the $230 million. That's the budget that we're using right now for this fiscal year. Then you remember that we started with an original request of $252 million. During that same request, we were able to find or allocate $20.5 million worth of special funds to cover some of these general expenses. And then we came with an adjusted request to the city of $232 million. This $232 million is the number that we've been talking about for a while. This is the amount that we said that we needed to keep status quo. Out of the $232 million, officially, and I want to make like a little asterisk here because I will explain the difference. Officially, on our books, we're going to show a budget of $226 million. Now, that seems to be just under $6 million short of the amount that we were requesting. So I will explain that in just a second. The next column then shows there's a diff from the $230 million to the 226 that we receive is a $12.9 million difference. As I explained in the previous F&O meeting, this $12.9 million is made out of $7.6 million from the state through the supplemental ECS supplemental grant, another $300,000 that the elders apply from using municipal aid, so that makes the 7.9, and then the $5 million from the mayor's proposal during his budget request to the elders, so that makes up the 12.9. Then the other $6 million that we're missing in order to keep the status quo, what the elders did is that they approved that $6 million, but they, instead of applying it to the budget as a line item to the general funds, they are keeping that $6 million on an assigned fund balance, which is another area, accounting wise, is another area of the budget of the city, where we, as the district, we will have to request for a transfer of that $6 million into the operating budget at some point during the year. The specifics of when and how and the mechanism to do so, that still has to be sorted out. However, this is not the first time that they've employed the same mechanism, and we know that the money is there. It's for educational purposes. It is strictly for BOE. So we are certainly counting on that $6 million as it was the intention of the others and also of the mayor and everybody involved. So there is no discrepancy on the intentions. However, it's just mostly of an accounting mechanism that makes it look a little bit different. But the $6 million is there and it's available. So what you see right now, the actual approved budget that you will have in front of you this coming Monday will be only for 226 and not for 232. But again, I will explain the $6 million fund balance again on Monday to make sure that not only the board members, but also the public understands that we do have $232 million. It's just classified in a different way. And we have to show it in this manner in order to comply with just the technicalities of accounting and how the system will be accounting for these funds. The other thing before I go into the detail section of this budget, because I did broke down this into different line items, so you can see a more detailed version of it. But before we get caught up on every single line item, I want to explain how we make some decisions on which line items we're going to get which funding. So we know that $6 million are coming, and what we decided to do was to keep that $6 million as part of our efforts to maintain the current FTE levels that we have. It was extremely important for us to have enough funding to maintain all the staffing that we have this year. $6 million equates to approximately 71 positions. Without that $6 million, we would have been having a different conversation about 71 positions. So having that $6 million there guarantees that we can maintain those 71 positions in our payroll. So what you will see in this budget is will be a decrease on the total salaries and benefits, only because we are accounting for that $6 million that will come in at some point. It will come in into play at some point during the year to cover for some of those expenses. So a combination of that $6 million, a combination of reallocation of funding between special funds and general funds, and then just the natural changes of salaries that happen, every year will make a lot of differences in these line items, and it may open up for questions. So why this number went down? Why this number went up? I just gave you three different factors that are playing into this, and those three factors combined created that visual that some numbers go up, some numbers go down. But this is no different than what we've been presenting all along. It's just the way that the funding is allocated change in order for us to accommodate these $6 million fund balance. And also, the fourth factor is we also needed to make substantial adjustments to the transportation line and the tuition line. And because we had to make those and the other contractual services, because we have to make substantial increases and changes on those line items, we also had to move some funding to those areas in order to cover for those expenses, and then shift some of the special funds to salaries. So that's why you will see salaries essentially going down compared to previous year or compared to what we presented in the draft. But then you see then total non-salary kind of going up. It's just a shifting of funding in order to maximize every special fund that we have, and also the $6 million fund balance. So with that said, and I will obviously open up for questions towards the end. But with that said, then I can show you now the detail. I will go not super fast, but I will go a little bit fast in order to get to the end. But then you'll have more time to evaluate every single line item and ask any questions, in the future, either tonight or in the future. So here's the top section of the personnel, and here you have a comparison of the approved budget for this year compared to the final budget. And it says final, but there's really a little bit of a draft component to this, only because between now and Monday, I have an opportunity to make some slight changes that we have already identified. One of them, for example, will be for the snow removal. We know that Dr. White presented to the board regarding snow removals, a little bit of a need to add additional funds for that particular line item. This budget does not reflect that change yet. However, I do intend to do so before Monday, and I will show you what line item that is when we get to it. But there will be some slight changes that we will make, but it will not be substantial enough that will change its numbers, drastically. Part-time personnel, again, the first column of amounts versus the second column is the budget for this year compared to what we are request or suggesting for approval for Monday. Then you have the rest of the part-time personnel, and at the bottom you have the total personnel, the 122 versus the 121. Again, remember the $6 million will come into this area in addition to more special funds. Then you have on the non-personnel, you have instruction that went up slightly, especially in the tuition line. As you can see, from 26 to $28 million, that went up by $2 million. That was kind of like the one that drove the increase in this particular category. Operation of plant, that one pretty much stayed pretty steady. However, towards the bottom, you see maintenance agreement services. That's where snow removal is. So we may be able to get to probably about $1.2 million on that line item in order to accommodate the request by Dr. White. And then that will mean that another line item, some other area, will decrease by that same amount. So just for the public, we are not adding more expenses or more revenue. We are just reallocating from one line to another. So we have to now identify where can we get the funding from an expense to then increase this one. Then here you have transportation and other. In transportation is the biggest change. As we know, we've talked about transportation for quite a bit regarding how it was budgeted for this year. And now we're trying to get as close as possible to reality. We may still be a little bit short, but I know that Dr. White has also presented some mitigation strategies that he will start putting in place in order to decrease the cost of transportation. So between that and the increase that we put in this particular budget, we should be able to bridge that gap. And then under other contractual services will be the one driving the biggest change in that particular category. And then at the bottom, you can see the 213 versus the 226. And then now I'll open up for questions. I know that was a lot of information and a lot to go through, but I wanted to be mindful of your time. And I know it's your anniversary, Dr. Wilcox, I mean, Mr. Wilcox, so I know you're dying to go and have some dinner or whatever plans you have. So,
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for you and your team putting together the budget and also how you explained it and walked through things. For the slide that was just before this, where I think it was transportation. Well, one thing, I like how my question is about other contractual services, but one thing I wanted to point out is that I was looking for, and you have it under transportation, special education, and calling it out specifically as a line item. And I think anywhere where where the district doesn't really control the cost, it might be good to make sure it's a line item in some way or to indicate it in some way so that we know how much of a particular budget goes towards, let's say, special education or other things where we really don't control the cost for it. For other contractual services, because you named it and you spoke about it as a larger item of the budget, is that something you can spell out some more in a future draft or clarify what goes into that when you present the in the paper edition of the budget?
yes. Contractual services, what I'll do, for Monday, what I'll do, if it's okay, unless you need some answers before Monday, is that I'll give you some examples of some of those contractual services that were included in the budget. I have a sheet that has a little bit more of a breakdown, more detailed than this level, that I can kind of like sort out, filter in a way that I can provide some additional information if that's okay. Unless you need it before Monday, I can have it for Monday.
Yeah, not before Monday. I think that would be useful to the board just to know what some of the, like you said, spell out what's in there, what some of the cost drivers might be if there are a few that are really setting up what that amount is. I think that's my only question right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have a couple. Thank you for the presentation. And I think it's been an interesting budget season this time around with a lot of moving parts and lots of things happening, not just in the city, but at the state level. And so thank you for your work and Dr. Negron and the rest of the team, and then all the people that fought for the stuff that really made this work, which includes, unions, parents, board members, staff, etc.
Students.
All of that. So that this is a wonderful place to be compared to where we were looking at the beginning of this process, and compared to some other large cities that haven't been quite as successful in dealing with some of these just structural issues that are built into inequitable school funding in Connecticut. So thank you for all that. Two or three quick things. One is since we have transportation in front of us, we did have some requests at their last board meeting from student groups, or student rather, about bus passes and things like that. So my question is, does bus passes appear in one of these categories? And if not, where would they be? So these would be the bus passes that are going to be handed out to students.
Yeah, I believe, and I'll confirm this. I believe under city transit, it's where bus passes will
Okay.
fall.
Okay, and so the intention there is, I was looking for bus passes and just missed CT Transit, which is right in front of me. And so the idea there is keeping that line steady, even though there's also going to be some bus passes coming in from the last legislative session. So the district spending from our general funds is going to be stay steady, and then other stuff that might come from the state will be on top of that. Is that correct?
Well, that in this particular case, that would be accurate.
Okay.
But I will also now piggyback on this to also say that there are other line items that were budgeted the way they were budgeted, only because we're also using the actual historical data.
Okay.
And oftentimes, people ask, oh, why this go up or why this went down? Do you have less or more of these services? And the answer is neither one. The answer is we're basing this on actual historical data. Whatever it is that happened this year, we don't see any changes. So we're going to budget the same amount again, or we're going to increase it based on any potential percentage of increase, of the services that we have, for that particular line item. So there are some changes that don't always necessarily correlate to a particular number of service increasing or decreasing. It's mostly using historical data as your number one methodology to create the budget amount for future years.
Okay. All right, that makes sense to me. Thank you for that. Couple other things is my understanding is that the plan is to update the budget book that you all put together a few months ago, earlier than I've ever seen it done, which I know took a lot of work. So is the plan to also at some point have a final budget book? Understanding it might not be able to happen in the next week, but is it going to happen maybe in July? What's the plan on the budget book?
Yeah, so yeah, Dr. Negron, she told me we need that budget book for July, right? So we started already drafting kind of like the timeline of making it happen for July, and that's the request, and that's what you're gonna get. So
Okay.
sometime in July. So if it was up to me, I'll say July 31st. Give me until the last day of July, but we'll see. It's definitely for July.
Okay, so thank you. You might want to mention that in the presentation at the board meeting. The other thing is the $6 million problem in terms of the $6 million, which was allocated by the state that went to the city for educational purposes. The alders are with their mechanism of kind of keeping it separate, and it's going to come to us, but it just means that we look like we have a $6 million, almost $6 million deficit to begin with. If you could go back a couple slides to the kind of the grand picture.
The summary one.
Yeah, one more
Oh.
back. There you go. So is there a way, understanding that the money is not in the general fund, so the money in Munis can't be shown there or have things allocated against it, but could there maybe on this be a reminder or something that says that there is $6 million um, allocated for this, held aside, that will address that. I'm
Yes,
just
yes.
wondering
In
how we can
fact,
show that.
yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mentioned to Dr. Negron earlier when I was talking to her that was my intent to show the $6 million somehow, some way in a slide after this one or even in within this one. I couldn't find the right way of doing it, and I just decided to just talk about it verbally. What I will do is that I perhaps can create a little bit of another chart or maybe a little bubble, like a cloud on this particular slide to talk about the $6 million, or perhaps even allocate it somewhere. I'll figure out a way to show it, that it doesn't look too crowded, but that it also stands out, so that way the public can get the sense of that the $6 million is coming, is part of it. I'll figure out a way to do it. I'll
So,
Yeah.
so there's two parts to this. One is if it could, on this, maybe as, down at the bottom of the page, a
Like
note,
a note.
I was thinking of a text box or something right
Okay.
underneath, if we can
something that says that
fit it
this,
on the slide.
and then my other suggestion is if you go back a slide,
Mhm.
uh, maybe between this and then the next, that slide,
Uh-huh.
maybe that would be a good point for what you were talking about, Mr. Hernandez, which is to kind of have, this is a broad summary, but it's still kind of detailed. Maybe a summary of where the money's coming from this year that might be able to kind of like the big picture with the big numbers. This is coming from the state.
Oh,
This is
yes.
coming through the city. This is the $6 million that's there. That would be maybe a way to kind of just show this is where all the moving pictures are coming.
Yes, I have a pie chart
Okay.
that's dedicated for that. I didn't include it for tonight because I was missing two pieces of information. But
Okay.
it was my intent to include it. As you see, if you notice on the draft budget that I presented, I did have that revenue chart as part of this presentation. But I excluded it from tonight because I still need two more components. But
Okay.
yes, it will be ready for Monday.
And you verbally talked about it, but just
Yeah.
to have something in the
Yeah.
form there. Dr. Negron, you wanted to?
No, I just wanted to confirm, Mr. Wilcox, because I think I understand what you're talking about. CFO Hernandez, I think, did a good job today in explaining, uh, right, the column that makes up for that 12.9 million, where that came from, in addition to that deficit of the 5.9. So I think I'm hearing you say just kind of capture that in the slide before you introduce this one, so that
Yes.
we know, right? Part of it is that supplemental state aid that came in. Some of it we know, right? The alders are going to use it from their the aid that came in for the municipal aid, those kinds of things.
Yes, I think that would be great. And like I said, he did verbally cover it, but and it sounds like there's plans in place for that.
And Mr. Wilcox, if I may, I like to make sure that I clarify this just for the public. I know we understand it. We've talked about this for quite a bit. But I do want to make sure that people understand the others, that $6 million is part of the municipal aid. So that $6 million didn't necessarily have to come to BOE. That money, the alders and the mayor could have used that funding for anything for the city. But they saw the need. They understood that the educating our students is a priority, and they allocated $6 million to BOE. Technically 6.3, but $6 million to the fund balance. The other point three they actually put it towards this budget. So $6 million for education. So I just want to also, be grateful and thankful to the others and the mayor for having that vision to understand that educating our students is a priority, and they actually use some of that funding that they receive from municipal aid for BOE. Many other towns I can tell you, I've been looking at other towns. They didn't do this. They didn't, use some of the funding for education. And again, every town has different needs. So I'm grateful that the others were able to allocate this funding for education.
Yes, and so yeah, I think having something, my final 2 points are one is, and I'm sure it would be in the final presentation that, like you were said, this is the draft that's going to be filled out with some of this other detail. Something around the thank you slides, because this only worked because of just what you mentioned. Uh, People in the city working together, getting on the same page, listening to each other. You all and the board hearing the concerns of people like the alders and our state legislators, all the presentations that happened in the public and behind the scenes, in one-on-one meetings with people that I know were happening, just to make, to have that, all the lobbying efforts that happened at the state level from all the people I mentioned previously. So like the thank you, that really kind of captures this. I think will be great to include that in some sort of visual way, something written on the page so that the slide deck stands alone in case it's removed from the narrative. And then the final thing is the only thing that worked, made this happen, that kept us from layoffs and all sorts of things, is this one-time money that is just for this coming fiscal year. It's not included. There's going to be a whole bunch of other work with the commission, that's Blue Ribbon Commission, that's looking at the state funding for education and the ECS formula. But there is a giant piece of this is one-time funds. And I think we need to call that out, because next year's, FY28 budget starts the day after we pass this one.
Yeah,
So,
so I like to my intent is to talk about this and some other items on the next FNO. Since I don't have to necessarily present the budget again, I have a little bit more time. But I will just put this in advance. As part of the strategic operating plan, I have 5 work streams. I have 5 areas, 5 particular items that I'm going to be working on. One of them is funding advocacy. So advocating for funding. Because we understand what you just explained, that this is a one-time funding, and now we have to kind of like say, okay, you know what, we got some breathing room, but the work doesn't stop. We have to now get right back into advocating for more sustainable funding and for that formula to change, and all the work that we know needs to happen now for this new biannual budget the state has to pass next year. We are formalizing the process of advocating for funding. So this year we were all hands on deck. We were all going to the state capitol. We were having meetings with state legislators, with the elders, with the mayor's office. But we're going to formalize this process so that way every single year we know how to advocate for funding, who are the different stakeholders, and how to organize ourselves in a very formal, methodical way, so we can continue to ask to advocate for funding in the future. So I'm going to be leading that charge, and that's going to be one of 5 areas that I'm going to be working on for the next strategic operating plan.
all right. And then my final thing is as far as posting with the meeting materials, there's so much. We've had budget workshops and previous presentations, et cetera. So I would recommend, and it would also go, because there was also definition documents and things like that, is just a quick look at what has been posted as meeting materials before, and maybe posting that again as a reminder, so that for the next full board meeting, there's like one-stop shopping for people that want to go back and go, where's the definitions? What's different from the previous draft presentation that was presented to the alder, just being able to kind of have in one place one or two other of those documents, because I know that those had the full rundown of how the process worked, all the different groups that were met with, et cetera. So just as a recommendation there. Dr. Negron?
Yes, I just wanted to remind us, right, that we still have that hub where we have all the budget resources, where we've been keeping all of the materials. So I think that's definitely a place that we can continue to include these and remind the public that they're all accessible again through our website.
I think that's great, but I also think just in the meeting materials, I know myself and maybe
On
others,
Monday. Okay.
that's where we're looking for the stuff for the particular meeting. And so, and having it in one place just makes it a little bit easier to find. And that we're finding the right version of a document. Although I agree on the district website, continuing that process is great.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this? Dr. Yarbo, do you have anything else that came up in our conversation? So I just as a final thing, I do think it's really important to be able to show where that $6 million is coming in one place, because that really is a different narrative than other districts are having, where they're still looking at large deficits. And through a lot of hard work of a lot of people, this is actually targeted at being balanced. Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, this will, in terms of it being presented at our board meeting, I think this presentation is a good example to make sure it's available for those who are present physically at the meeting. So either us using the large screen to present, but maybe even also having the physical copies to hand out. I know, it's hard to gauge who's actually going to be there at the meeting, but the physical copies help people to go at their own pace. So even if we change slides during the presentation, if they want to look at some detail, they have some detail. But certainly a larger screen could help. And then for the board members who might be in person, a physical copy for them. And usually as we post the meeting materials in advance, that's also an opportunity for people to look and touch and feel. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. And unless there is any upcoming financial issues you all want to share with us, I'm ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved. I'll second it. How do you vote, sir?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
The anniversary.
Thank you.